everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting. In another indie show, we are talking more Fear Agent. We're talking the finale of the main story tonight. And I got my man Unruly with me again. What is going on, sir?
As little as humanly possible.
You know, I like that. That's how I spend as many days as I can get away with. So, as many days as I can get away with. And we got, of course, our buddy Greg, the bearded comic bro. What is going on, sir?
Not much. How's it going, fellas?
It's going well. It's going well.
Good.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about some comics. So
yeah, always exciting to talk comics. So yes,
right?
We have the end tonight of the main story arc of Fear Agent. Obviously, we have not read the tales of the Fear Agent, which are like little insets, but the main story arc, we're getting the end tonight. So I'm just going to ask before we dig into the details, and you can give a final thing, just generally, did this stick the landing for you, Greg? Or were you like, what did you think of how this wraps up here?
I'm banking that this show is going to help me understand what the heck happened in this volume, because I got so lost that it didn't do it for me. This volume, it didn't do it.
There were parts of this I had to stop and reread. Like I had to be like, okay, what is, and we'll get into those in a minute.
Yeah,
so I understand.
This was the toughest volume for me to get through, and I think I'm like, all right, I just need Unruly and JP to help me out here, because I am going.
We're gonna help each other, I think.
This is what we're doing. Like, it's not bad, but I just feel like I don't understand what happened, and so I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I sympathize. Unruly, what about you? Did this stick the landing for you?
Oh, 100%. And I don't think that I am any more not in the dark than you are, sir. And this is the second time I've read it. But I just think of it as like it's the dilithium crystals captain on Star Trek. Yeah, okay. Just throw some jargon at me, Remender.
Yeah.
So I want to start there, like, because we came off of Black Science, which was very similar in terms of trippy time travel and alternate universe stuff and alternate versions of the same person and all this kind of stuff, where in some ways he did over the top explaining some of that. In this book, he's just like, yeah, there's multiple versions, there's time stuff going on. Yeah, just deal with it. Go.
Yeah, it feels like this version, like in Black Science, there was always a through line of which Grant, right? Like, this is the Grant. I feel like here they're kind of like, it doesn't matter. And like, without going too far down the road, it's like, this is a clone body of the original body, and the brain of another body now transported in this body. And like, it was just kind of this, like, it's like, it doesn't matter. Just know that whoever you're with at the end, that's the one that you're rooting for. So like, good for you. Like, we don't know which I don't want to say we, because I'm sure people do who are smarter than me. I have no idea. Like, is this like the original one that we were with, the mindset? Like, I'm just so confused. So
I'm 95% sure it is the original essence, or however you would describe it. The original person, the original timeline guy. His brain was decanted into the clone, and then he goes through something similar at the end of this.
Yeah. I was confused, and I don't know where we were going with even the ending aspect. So it was just like, there's a lot going on that I'm going, I need some help.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I think my niece and nephew are trying to call me, and I'm trying to tell them that I'm on YouTube at the moment. So
hop in the chat, niece and nephew, if you want to talk to your JP.
So yeah, it definitely, like, I mean, it gets trippy here. Like,
Yeah.
right off the bat, because where we left them was they were trying to escape and basically got sucked into a black hole with ghosts and like
And they were old.
And they got old for a minute, and then when they come out the other side, they're not old, but the ghosts are still there, and they wake up on this what we sort of assume is an alternate universe,
right?
But then as you go through the story, is it really in an alternate universe? Because they could get home. Like, it's very, and there's another version of Heath that's here, and there's Charlotte is here, and we don't know if this is the original Charlotte or a different version of Charlotte. Like, it gets very weird in this very first arc here. So, Greg, what did you think of this? We're arrived on this like cowboy world, for lack of a better term.
Confused. Like this set the tone for the volume for me because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they ever explain how they went from old to young again. They were just like, oh, I remember us being old. And then they were like, okay, let's just leave that there. And I was just like, I don't like that. I feel like you give me just some subtext that I might have missed it, but I was just like, I didn't like that. So it set the tone for me of just feeling like very disjointed. Like, what is going on here? We were just here and then we got here, but there was very little explanation. And I don't need a Jonathan Hickman, prose page here of, what's going on, but a little bit more of like, you can't just, in my mind, you can't go, this is where you're at. And then now stuff has changed. So like, I didn't like this world because then again, like you said, JP, you're like, there's versions of these characters. Is it an alternate universe? How far are they in the black hole? Did they time jump? Because they've been doing time jumps in this. And now I'm like, did the black hole go forward and then they jump backwards all of a sudden? Like, where are we at? So there was just a lot of just like, it almost feels like Remender's just like, buckle up. Either you enjoy it, there's no explanation, just go for it. And for me, I was just like, I didn't like that vibe of this volume.
Yeah. What about you, Unruly? What did you think of this arriving at the cowboy world, for lack of a better term here?
Well, that's the beauty of going through a black hole, right? No one knows for sure exactly what happened. So you can write anything you want. We were old, now we're young again. I think I said this either about the first volume or maybe it was about Black Science. But he writes this exactly like it's an old serial, from the 40s or 50s.
You said it about this one, yeah, in the first volume.
They'd be like 5 to 8 minutes long, 20 to 40 chapters.
Yeah,
that was a way to get you in the theater every Saturday. But that's the handful I've seen were written just like this. It's always a cliffhanger at the end, and much like those old serials, there wasn't always a coherent explanation as to how the hero got out of the last predicament.
Yeah, the next issue always goes somewhere completely different, or next episode goes somewhere completely different. Yeah, and I mean that's really what happens here. We are talking about Fear Agent by Rick Remender. We were talking about the final two kind of volumes of this, or two story arcs, I should say, Eye Against Eye and Out of Step. So this is kind of the finale of this series that we're talking about tonight. And I found it like, so yeah, we get the explanation, like they go through the black hole, they're like staring at the sky, and he's like, I don't recognize this guy from anywhere that I've been. Like, but then he goes into this town, and then there's Mara robots, and he's being hunted, and he winds up in another town, and Charlotte is there with no explanation of how Charlotte ended up there. And I will say, like, the Eye Against Eye section of the story, like,
is that what this chapter is called?
Yeah, the whole thing where he's on the cowboy planet.
Yeah,
like it basically from where we start until let's see, where is the break? I forget. Is it right after like they to where they capture the one, I believe.
Yeah.
and then everything after that is out of step. So I think let me double check here. I'm just double checking where the break. No, the break is at when he goes home and like the weird time thing happens. So Eye of Against Eye goes all the way to the point where Charlotte and them become robots.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Ugh.
So this section of the story, I think the whole purpose of this volume is like it's supposed to be Heath's battle with himself, with his alcoholism, with his and like his darker nature, and the fact that he's done some terrible things, and him trying to find himself. And I feel like what the arc is about here, it's just like the whole thing has jumped around like the whole series, but I've enjoyed it. This one just felt too much. Like, and then so what about you, Unruly? What did you think about just the way this like fits into the overall story, this section of it does?
I love it. It's like it's like he's playing Jenga with his own brain. You know what I'm saying? He just keeps piling it taller and it gets more tottery. But it's to me, I wish every comic blew my mind like this one does. But it's not super intellectual by any means. It's just fun. It's just what he's putting through his paces. Every page, every issue.
So as we go through this, basically, we find out there's two versions of Heath on this world. Obviously, they went through the black hole. How they ended up here, we're not sure. But we basically find out this other version of Heath kind of explains that instead of like fighting the Taldarians, I get the names all confused, the robot people, heal and like he made a deal with them and he got this world created for himself. And Greg, what did you think of it? Like just the way this is laid out and explained here, like does the confusion of what's happening, I guess, take away from the actual like content of Heath dealing with his own demons right in front of him?
Yes. Because I mean, Rick Remender always has like very much, I feel like in at least the ones that we've read, Deadly Class, Black Science, now Fear Agent, he has these through lines, right? That are always about like, Black Science was really a lot of a father's journey of not being a good enough husband, not being a good enough father, but trying to also, deal with that internal struggle. This is where we really are getting this look at what it is to battle your own demons inside, right? Like the choices you made, like the choices that Heath made earlier on of wiping out almost entire race. He's been an alcoholic this entire stretch, right? Like, and he's battling. I like having him actually fighting his person, right? Because then it's putting a face to the issue that you can actually see of like, it feels like he's actually physically fighting and wrestling and struggling because he's already made the determination before he meets evil Heath, right? Like that he's like, I'm done with alcohol. Like I'm done fighting this battle. And I think like, I like that. I just think the theme got lost in the confusion of what's going on because like Unruly said, he's given it a very much the serial vibe. And I think you need if you want these moments to stick a little bit more, you gotta bring some of us dumber folk along like myself and say like, here's where we're at. And to appreciate those moments a little bit more. It didn't hit with the impact that I felt like it should have because I was so confused of what was going on and where we're at.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like this section, I struggled with this section, and particularly we won't get to the end yet, but just like it, my confusion made me like less locked in on what was actually happening with him. And I feel like from what Unruly's talking about, like the whole tone of this book from the beginning is just, it's going to be adventure, action. It's not always going to make sense. Just go for the ride. And this was and for the most part, I'd been able to do that. This was the one section where I was struggling to do that, to just go for the ride and not try to think through the logic, because sometimes there wasn't logic to some of this. It's just like, okay, how can I make this crazy action go forward? Go ahead, Greg. You look like you got a
No,
reply to-
it feels like this is the most like struggling with different tones that Remender story does for me.
Yeah.
This is like super thought provoking deep, like the level of Heath battling his inner demons, like meshed with like Fast and the Furious movie, right? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to just shut off my mind and enjoy it? Because I can do that. There's a time and place for that. But are you trying to get me to like do an introspective realist? And like for me, that's where I feel like because I couldn't connect the dots again. I don't want to say he doesn't, because again, he's probably, if you and he's not watching this, ever watch this, like, you're an idiot. You missed this, and this, and that's fine. It's above your head. But like, it just felt like we were on these two different paths of not knowing what type of story it wanted to be and which one I should like. Do I suspend my disbelief, or do I get wrapped into this, like, this emotional feeling of like this battling with your inner demons? And that's where I felt like this disconnect for me was.
Yeah. What about you, and really anything else about this, like his fight with himself here, that you want to like point out or talk about before we kind of move through the rest of this this section?
Have we established that his body is wearing out? Didn't they tell him that when?
So we haven't talked
right
about that
before they
yes,
tried to
like,
kill him.
One of the things we find out is the clone body that the Heath that we've been following all along, or we think we've been following all along, is like that he died when he was dying. So they put his brain into a clone body, and this clone body is breaking down. Like, it's not aging properly. It's basically, yes, that he's dying, that he doesn't really have that much longer to live. Meanwhile, the evil Heath in this appears to be, because when he made the deal, he never got cloned. So in this alternate timeline Heath that we're running across, he never got cloned. So that is like the
Okay.
where we're fighting. So that body is not like breaking down and falling apart the way the
Which
one
makes sense for later on in the story.
for later on in the story.
This helps. This is why I was like, all right, this show's gonna help me at least piece together some stuff. Then I'm like,
Yeah. So while he's doing this, he is battling himself. He's sort of reconciled with Charlotte. We don't know if this is. Because they went to the black hole, I'm not sure this is his version or a different version.
she says she at least knows who he is.
Yeah.
Of like knowing that version, because she like tells him like to shut up when she's like, because she was like, the fact that she too was like,
she knows about the fact that he killed, like he was the death of her husband, her other husband, or
right.
whatever.
And the fact that too, like, she was like, yeah, I'll take this guy and let him stay in my house to recover. Like, it was a very odd move unless she knew who it was.
Yeah.
So, because it was like, there was like, oh, you're just gonna let this random stranger come live in your house because you're like, I'll nurse him back to health. Like,
yeah,
that seems odd unless you knew it was him, and she did.
Yeah.
So
she did. So basically, the end of this is our Heath is actually losing to his inner demon, basically.
mm-hmm.
But then the Drezites, who are the ones that our Heath basically tried to wipe out or nearly did, come and take him and leave our Heath for dead, even though that body manages to survive again. They're like, oh, he's dead, but no, he's not. And we get the sequence at the end of this volume, which basically they end up teaming up with the Drezites, which I find this very weird. So both versions of Heath were the same when he basically like annihilated the Drezites. Like, the split was later in these two alternate versions. But they're torturing one to make him pay for what he did, and the other one they end up like making a deal with to try to fight the robot people. What did you think of like this twist and how this plays out? Because it didn't seem like that's where that was going with the Drezites as our villains here, Greg. What did you think of like this twist at the end of this, where he ends up reconciling and they take back Earth before we get to the very confusing end?
Well, even that though was confusing because like they kidnapped the wrong one, right? Like, why?
Well, the split happens later, so technically both of them did it. Like, if you want to like follow.
Okay, so they're, according to them, either one would have worked, and they got the more original body, not the
clone.
not the clone. So that's why they took that one. Okay.
Yeah. But it's a very weird break in logic. And really, what did you think of because there is a logic break here. It's because there's like literally they're making a deal with our version to like help and team up against the robots while they still have the other one being tortured. Like, so what did you think of this, Unruly?
It seems somewhat logical to me after all he's been through. He's going to grasp at whatever straw he can get. Remember, there's only like, what, 20,000 humans less?
Yeah, there's not very many left.
The way it's presented, the way it's presented, and it's kind of rushed, I'll grant you that. It seems like it's the only move he can make. But then freaking Remender throws the most M. Night Shyamalan crap at us of all after they get back to Earth.
So, yeah, we basically see him reconcile with the Dresdites and reconcile with his buddy's niece that had kind of turned on them and been got left with the Dresdites because they're both down to like very few numbers is basically where they're at. And so they reconcile, so they can fight to tell the robot people. And then we get Charlotte turns into the Terminator and we get the ending here of that the robot people went back in time, the Tetals, or however you want to call it, went back in time and altered history again. Altered the history of the human race. What did you think when we got to this reveal, Greg? I see you shaking your head.
Well, it's like this is where I get so confused. So I'm like, so they long game this like whole trickery play because like there's like multiple there's two separate pages where it says months pass.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm like, it just, and then I'm like, okay, like I'm digging it. I'm vibing it. I was like, I forgot that there was still a whole nother volume basically. Cause I was reading it digitally. So I can do that sometimes where I go, oh yeah, maybe this is a shorter volume than the other ones. And I was like, cool. They figured out like, no killing doesn't matter. Like we're going to keep this endless cycle. Let's break the cycle. And then like, her and the daughter turn into Terminator things. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, all right, you lost me again. And so there's too much twists and turns going on without an explanation in my mind. So I'm just like, I didn't like it.
Well, we don't get an explanation for why everybody turns into the Terminator. We get a page where they reveal where basically like we get the whole thing like, and actually, we don't get that till the next volume. So we get this reveal. We don't really understand what's happening, and you start out of step, and you basically get the reveal of like that they went back in time because it says 150 million years later. Like we see the monkeys, they go back and they basically infect like our ancient ancestors before we even existed as humans. And infect them and turn them into robot people like that are under their control. So basically they're going back in time and changed history. And the only reason that Heath and Nikolai, right? Is it Nikolai? I forget. The Russian guy that he's teaming up with.
Right.
Is because they went through the black hole. Therefore they were out of step with time. Like they kind of, which indicates that maybe we're still not in the original universe that we're from, like because they're out of step with time. But like I don't know. But Remender's not bothering with explanations on this. He's just going. So we get this rush. Heath is dying. The body's dying again, like for the 33rd time. So them and so they go back and basically they try to save him. They try to implant his brain in the evil Heath that we'd met before, who has the original body. But before he takes over, evil Heath kills everybody. So what did you think of this? Again, Unruly, go ahead. The opening of this volume out of step.
the part of me that's rooting for the happy ending was really upset that good Heath took over just a little too late to save his friends,
Yeah.
you know, but I loved it. I loved it. This is one of my top 20 favorite comics of all time. So it would be hard. I'd be hard pressed to criticize any part of this. I love everything about it. The art, the story, the breakneck pace. I don't mind having to think a little and while I'm also mindlessly enjoying, like you said, Greg, the
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious. It's glorious to me.
Yeah. What about you, Greg? What did you think of the opening of this new volume here, where we get the escape, we get the body switch, we get all of this? You know, again, we turn the page and we just almost jump to a completely different action sequence, different stuff happening. What did you think here, Greg?
I talk about grotesque, like the imagery that they show there, like when he makes the shift, I'm like, whew. So that's a highlight to the art there.
Yeah, we have not talked about the Tony Moore art, or was it mostly Moore this time? I forget.
Moore was on the first half of the first arc, and I think he was in on the second half of this arc, or I don't know. It's
so Moore's on like the first part of Eye Against Eye, and then it does shift to, and then it's Mike Hawthorne and Tony Moore on the Out of Step. So yeah. So Moore and Hawthorne do most of this. So
I'm okay. This is the one part where I am okay, like with the bad Heath taking out the Russian and the whatever, her acid bubble face girl. Like the acid filled Mysterio. Like, I'm okay with that because, again, I think how it, we'll talk about the ending, but this is Heath's story, right? And it's Heath dealing with Heath. And so as they slowly take out the other players, it allows it to focus back on what Remender's trying to tell, right? Which is, this isn't about all the other pieces are side dressing, right? Like this is really about Heath dealing with stuff. So I kind of like that. I kind of did like the switcheroo there, and like wait, it didn't work. And then like when it was like, it was delayed. I was like, okay, I kind of like that then too. Like, that I thought that was a fun little twist on the twist.
No, I agree. I think this works. I think this, like for me, I was confused. Like the part of this that didn't work for me was my confusion about how this cowboy world exists and what universe it's in, and then the very drastic change of everybody turning into robots in the first volume. Like that, I found that jarring. This part, this was back to what I was enjoying with Fury when we got to this
same
part. Like, and this is really, it's basically, as you go through this, and this is where we've been leading this whole time, which is for Heath being the last one left, literally. Like him being all that's left and trying to figure out a way to put things right, even though everybody's gone. And that's basically where we're getting to. So we get after this, after he like comes to and he escapes, we get another time jump here, and we're getting Old Man Heath. What did you think when you turned the page and got to see this version? And we get we almost get a Han Solo in the cantina kind of scene here with the old version of Heath. What did you think when you turned the page for Old Man Heath here, Unruly?
I love that cover to 29. Love that cover. I was dismayed by these first few pages where he's just like, you don't have the explanation for why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And but then when it all becomes clear, it still sucks.
Yeah.
But he has no choice.
Yeah.
But I wish we'd have got just a little bit more of Old Man Heath than we got.
Yeah, because we're basically getting what 4 issues approximately
Yeah.
of Old Man Heath. What did you think of the reveal of Old Man Heath, and Greg? What did you think?
Same thing I've thought most of this volume. What the heck is going on? What did I miss? Like, how are we here? And like, so because nothing,
you're just not like, okay, I'm getting no explanation, I'm just going.
no, because I go back to, I'm like, because nothing got explained. Now in my mind, I'm like, wait, was all that last a flashback or something somehow? And like, this is the Old Man Heath that was when we got the last volume where we ended, where there was no explanation.
Where they were turning into old people. Yeah.
Where he was turning into an old person. He was getting there. So I was like, okay, is this where we're at? Like, and then like, so now I'm overthinking things because things don't get explained. I'm like, was that a throwaway volume of like an inner dream while he was turning old? That like, because like there's no explanation of why we went from he got into the new body with the brain swap to now old man. And I'm just like, ugh. So this was my frustration.
Yeah. I mean, by this point, I was just like, I'd given up on the frustration. I'm like, okay, I'm just rolling with this. It's like, I'm not going to understand. I'm just going. And it's, it's still action packed. It's still, we see Heath is back in the bottle. Like, he, despite all his efforts in the previous to like not to get himself clean, when it all went to crap again, we see that he's back in the bottle. And basically, what we learn here is that the robot people have basically taken over the universe. They have basically conquered all of time and space by going back in time and basically like taking over these races before they evolve from the beginning, and making them all. But they can't get to Heath because Heath is out of step with the timeline here. He doesn't like, they can't like actually track him, which I think was an interesting and somewhat well explained. Like, of all the things to well explain, the fact he did kind of explain why Heath is out here as we go through this. But I mean, eventually we even get to, he even loses his ship. Like, he finally even loses Angie here. He just like, yeah. Like, they literally take everything from him at this point. What did you think when he lost the ship and he's just floating through space here, Greg? What did you think when we finally lost like literally everything?
I was just like, this. I will say, like, what I was thinking as I was reading this, understanding this was the final arc that we,
Right.
like I did think to myself, this is a good bookend, right? Because I do feel like the first 4 issues, there's a lot of what the heck is going on, and it's just an action-packed, fun serial thing that like Unruly's talking about, and I felt like that was good from that aspect. I was like, okay, it's kind of tying it back in. Because I did just have to shut down and go, I don't know what's going on, and I understood that then the stuff that's supposed to make an impact on me wasn't going to hit because I had no framework for what was happening and where we were in time and space and things like that. So I enjoyed this one better than the earlier volume that we just talked about, but because I was just like, at this point, I was reading it as like its own story that I have no understanding of what's happened before, what's happened afterwards, because I was so lost.
Yeah.
But isn't that cool? Isn't that cool though to be lost?
No,
you know what I'm saying. I mean,
no, does not want to be
it
lost.
seems like 98% of what I read, I can, I know what's going to happen in the next page and the next issue sometimes, and I enjoy being discombobulated sometimes.
Nope. I need it. I understand what you're saying, but like for me, I just need to know, like, I need a little bit more guidance. Like, I don't like to watch something, read something, and go, what the heck happened? And to a degree, like, without like, there are a lot of shows and movies where I can do that and I have to process it. I'm still in the processing stage, at least for this, of going, I don't know what's going on. And like, this is like where you watch like Memento or you're watching an episode of Lost and you're like, what is going on here? Someone walk me through so I can enjoy this better and appreciate it for what it is. I'm not there yet.
Yeah. So we get basically, he lands on this moon. He gets confronted with the Jelly Brains, which was the original antagonist of this in the very first issue. He was fighting the Jelly Brain, and the Jelly Brain gets killed by some of these lizard guys, which were kind of minions that we've seen, but really hasn't, like, they weren't really well explained exactly what their role was before. But they're like, basically they're like, here, come with us. You're finally going to learn the truth of what's happened here. So we get a lore dump here in issue 3 when he interrogates the Jelly Brain. And this is the part I read once, and then I had to go back to read because I couldn't understand. Like, I was super confused by which side the king and the queen were on and who was responsible for what. And basically, I mean, we get basically your explanation here, Greg, although it's sort of confusing. What did you think of the explanation that the Jelly Brains are actually our villains and not the robot folks? All of it was sparked by them interacting with him. Like, all of this comes down to him and the Jelly Brains, really.
I read this multiple times trying to figure out what's going on, and again, I think I was so lost that when the time for an explanation came, I couldn't comprehend it, and I was just like, I
comprehended it after I read it the second time, but it was like, okay, what the heck? What about you, Unruly? What did you think of this explanation we get from the Jelly Brains when you got it?
I think it was a bit hurried. I do not believe that he had this. When he first sat down and started writing this, he did not have this ending plotted out. This was just pieces he pulled out of the ether to make come together. But it's as good as any other explanation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so we go through this, and basically the explanation we finally get is, and how Heath and the Jelly Brains and their interactions have basically caused all of this, is that when he'd obviously killed one of them before he went back in time, and then they saw it in his brain, but he convinced them to fight the robot folks.
Mm-hmm.
And to save and to reset time, which we'd seen, and then he got arrested for resetting time and all this stuff. And the explanation we get is that the Jelly Brains decided that, you know what? Like, there's too much chaos in all of this. Instead of defeating the Telltales, the robots, we're just going to take control of them and help them do what they want to do, but they're going to answer to us instead of doing it on their own. It's basically the general thing we get. And
to bring peace
then they
to the
couldn't
universe.
account for the fact that they sent teeth through time, is basically what it amounts to. That's what I took from it.
Somehow or another, he's become a blind spot to them.
Yeah.
And they're all-knowing control of the cosmos.
Yeah, well, basically because they sent him through time, they've been unable to, like, re-control him the way they wanted to because of how they did that. Greg, so with that explanation, does it make any more sense, or are you still like, I have no idea?
Still, I was like, I don't get it.
Like, the motivation for them to basically just give the robot people what they want, but instead of being in control, was a little weird to me.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's basically they used the robot people to basically take over the universe because they took over them. And it's really what it amounts to. But it was definitely a weird explanation. But it results in him working with these lizard guys to finally, like, set it all right. He's gonna go back to the Big Bang. He's gonna, like, set it all the way it needs to be and basically erase,
snip out their little bit. And the tachyon toe, don't forget the tachyon toe.
And then our explanation for how they could do this and now travel through time and avoid the Jelly Brains and the Telltale they have a Tachyon Toad. Where the hell that is? Which actually I kind of like the Tachyon Toad because like it doesn't make sense. So we're just gonna put this MacGuffin here that does what we need it to do, and we're gonna make it a toad.
But I'm okay with that. I'd rather
Yeah.
that at least do that more often. If you're gonna do that, just do that more often. Of like, oh, put up 2 panels in and be like, this is why they're no longer old. Just so I don't go, wait, what time frame am I in? Where am I at?
No. So the wrap of this is we get to see basically like so we get to see Heath invades, and they basically defeat the Telltales and the Tachyon and the Jelly Brains using the Tachyon Toad to send him back to the beginning of the universe. Meanwhile, we get to see finally the start of like Heath and Charlotte's relationship, like where like the beginning of back when they were kids, back before any of this happened, how they came together. What did you think about adding that in here, Greg, in terms of like getting some background on the two of them? It's really who he's doing all this for.
Right.
It's really at this point he's still doing it for Charlotte.
I like those moments. I really did like those pages and moments. Again, I feel like I didn't know what was going on, and so those moments didn't have the impact that I was hoping for as much. And like because even then, like, you know, he's reliving some of those moments, and then Robot Charlotte still shows up, and like so like there's just so much still going on that I don't know. So like as much as I love those moments, like they didn't have the impact that I wanted because as soon as I read it, I go, wait, now where am I at again? I don't know what's happening. So like it really, I felt like I just got, I don't know how to best explain it, but like I couldn't get invested in this volume because of the structure of the story.
Yeah. Okay, what about you, Unruly? What do you think of getting some background on their relationship here?
See, I think he dedicated too many pages to that. I enjoyed it though a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite is the last couple of pages when he's riding it out. And of course you got to throw in some Mark Twain quotes.
Well, I do love how like basically we get one thing I do want to touch on before we get to the last couple pages is the Robot Charlotte shows up to try is the only one that can stop him from doing what he's going to do. And I love how she tries to interact with the ship, and the ship is her, like, which we'd forgotten. Like, he uses the fact that Annie is her personality, has her memories, like, and basically is able to reboot her with like her actual brain, like the memories that Heath had, like which allows him to actually complete his mission. I did think that was a nice touch. But yeah, and actually sends him back to the beginning of the universe to do what he's going to do, which is eliminate our bad guy, the robots and the Jelly Brains, because they were from the same planet. And we get and then old man Heath gets to see what would have happened had his son and father not died that day. He gets to see that moment. What did you think about the ending here, Greg? The last couple of pages.
Again, I think it's at that same, like, I really like that moment, but I was so lost of where we were at in the story of old man Heath right now. Like, you know, even trying to grasp how he's watching this and what's going on. And it didn't stick as strong as it should have because I was so confused, and in my mind I'm just going, I don't know what's happening. I like those moments. I like seeing him look at that and see what's going, like what would have happened, and the emotion is real there, and like I just feel like I missed out on in fully embracing it because I was so wrapped up in trying to figure out where I was at in the story.
Okay. What about you, Unruly? What do you think of the ending? You were starting to go down that road a minute ago, and I cut you off. What did you think of the ending here?
I'm a big fan of the happy ending most of the time. I was glad he got his of sorts, but I really
Well,
like
of
the way
course,
he.
like the Heath that we follow is not the Heath that gets the happy ending. Like technically, like that Heath, he gets to see that there's going to be a Heath get a version of him that got the happy ending, but he's literally flies into the sun to end it.
But all his loved ones are there, and I think that's what's most important,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
They all got the happy ending, or as happy an ending as you're going to get in this
Happier
world.
ending, at least, yes.
But flying into the sun, that's what a great way to go out.
Like, well, because he's basically the only link to that timeline at this point. So he just he sees that it worked, and then he just ends it. Greg, you're still not, you're not happy with any of this. It's just
it because I didn't even understand that it was like I didn't know if like you said it's another timeline. I didn't know what we were watching in my mind still, so I couldn't appreciate like what he was seeing, and that like he was going into the sun to take out that timeline.
Like this part was explained pretty well, but maybe not. Like
it probably was, but again, I think because so much wasn't before that, I was so in my thoughts and minds that I couldn't appreciate it for what it was, and might have been different if I experienced this in single issues, and I could have had a chance to reflect and really process what was happening. But to try and read it all in one sitting, or over the time of a day, I was like, I don't like. It was too much being thrown at me without being able to process, and that might be the issue with this one of like where most of them are like, no, like.
You want to read in one setting, and this is like, no.
This one you probably want to. This is one of those where you need it to come out monthly. This is where like the weekly TV show release date works, right? You have an episode, then you can talk to your friends like, what happened? Oh, okay. And then you can go into the next episode appreciating it a little bit more. I think I needed that to get me to that ending, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't there because I read it all in one sitting. So again, I'm not consuming the content the way it was originally designed for me to consume. And I think this might be one of the first times where I'm like, oh, here's a comic that I'm consuming it the way it wasn't originally designed. And I'm like, I think it didn't work for me because of that. But that's just me.
That's a damn good point. This would probably be much better reading it on the original monthly schedule, assuming they kept to it. I mean,
right. I don't know. But even that, at least breaking it up, right? Because like, how often are we reading comics and like, I'm on monthly review shows where we talk about things and we're like, hey, like, oh, I like this, like what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't get that aspect. Okay, cool. And I can go like, if we got my mindset into where we were at in the story before we got to this last couple chapters, right? Even if I could have done the trade of the last one and then, this trade, at least process it a little bit more, I think I would have been in a better space. But because of that, I didn't.
For me, it worked. I felt like I understood this part. I felt like I understood where this was going. He'd went back in time to the very beginning and basically undone the timeline that he existed in, and got the ship allowed him a glimpse of what he missed out on, and that it worked basically before he. And so for me, I think that worked really well. I mean, it's a good use of the Sam Clemens lines in here. So I thought the ending was really well done. I thought it wrapped really well. But yeah, I mean, it was confusing at parts for sure, but overall it worked for me. It was just a fun. Like, I feel like that whole balance of what we asked for is this was just a fun ride. And you kind of had to just like Unruly said, you just kind of had to turn your brain off because some of it wasn't going to be explained and some of it wasn't going to make sense. It was just like, you know what? This is going to be like the old serials where crazy shit happens every week and it may or may not really be connected to what happened the week before. It's so I do get your point of like, this is one of the few ones where maybe it is better to consume an issue and then have some time away and then come back and consume an issue, as opposed to, it seems like everything we read anymore is all, you should read it as a volume, like 6 issues or one story, and then you go to the next story, and it's, And this is very much every issue is a break and a different almost a completely different story. It's connected, but it's only sort of in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, we're coming up on the end. Obviously, we still got the Tales of the Fear Agent, which are like little short stories from during his time when he was the 10 years that we missed, like at the very beginning, from when he left Earth to when this story starts. But your thoughts overall on Fear Agent? I'm going to let Unruly go and set the tone here of happiness of just rereading this again. Your thoughts on Fear Agent as a whole, this whole arc, the main story arc here.
Like I said earlier, you know, I can't find, I can't nitpick this. I loved it so much the first time I read it, and I got that thrill back because I'd forgotten huge chunks of it, and I didn't have it figured out the first time, and I still don't have it completely figured out. I could read something like this every day of the week.
Okay, Greg, your final thoughts here. What did we think of Fear Agent here as a whole? As you take the whole,
this was. I mean, this is my least favorite of Remender so far that I've read with the show that we've been doing.
Yeah, that we've talked about.
I think for me, those things that Unruly appreciated, I might be able to now on a reread. I think this is one that because I have some information, I'm not getting caught up like that. I can like that. I do think I could appreciate it more. I will say the way I felt reading this last volume didn't make me want to reread it.
Yeah.
So this is one that I think I would have to just like sit on the shelf for a while and like let it just marinate. And then in a couple years, if I was doing a Remender like ranking, like, okay, I need to go through and reread, like then it might
get back to you.
Yeah.
I get that. I think I'm thoroughly in the middle of the two of you. Like, I enjoyed this quite a bit. I do think it got a little confusing, or it got a lot confusing with the world, the cowboy world, and like the various things, and that he didn't always do a great job explaining. I don't think he was necessarily trying. I think he was trying to write a fun ride, and I think for that standpoint, he accomplished it. And I like Heath as a character. I thought he was well like developed and written, and
much better than Grant.
Yeah, and but like the supporting cast were just things for Heath to go through. Like the villains and everything else, it was just everything else was just sort of an obstacle for Heath. And it's really a one character book, which it ultimately becomes. So I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. It's not gonna. It probably ranks behind. It definitely ranks behind Deadly Class, and I'd have to think about whether or not. I think it's more fun than Black Science. I don't know if it's actually as good as Black Science, but I think it depends on what you're looking for a story there. I think they're comparable in terms of just quality. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm glad I read it. I'm looking forward to the little vignettes, which are just going to be like action Heath that aren't really like connected in the tales that we got still to read. But is it something I'm going to come back to a lot? No, probably not.
This is your Air of Fire. You love the main character, but there's no supporting cast. Not Air of Fire, Throne of Glass. And then Black Science is your Akatar. You love this
a little bit.
But don't necessarily love the main character.
All right. Well, any other thoughts before we wrap this up? Obviously, we got, like I said, we got the tales, which are going to be just like little action-packed stories, side stories. Any other thoughts here before we get out of here?
No, I reading the last volume, I'm like, oh, we got another volume that we still have to do of this. However, I will say, like, the things that we appreciated, like you saying, like, oh, they're going to just be action-packed stories. I think I am going to enjoy it because I can really think I can tone into it like it's a serial and not worry about, like, the plot at all and just like, oh, that was fun. Oh, that was fun. So, like, I'm back on board. Like earlier, I was like, we got another one I still have to read after this, and I already, like, and it's not going to enhance the story at all. It doesn't seem like, because it's not like giving you back matter. But now I'm like, you know, it'll just be fun. It'll be like that first issue.
Sure, there's some tie-ins to the story that we got, but I think my understanding, and Unruly can correct me if I'm wrong, is it's all like Tales of Fear Agent. It's all like short little stories that are all set, that were like at the back of issues, that are all set during the 10 years from when he left Earth, after he
before we meet him in the first issue.
Before we meet him in the first issue. Yeah, that 10-year period from when he left Earth the first time till we meet him is when they're all set. So it's just him flying around space doing jobs. Is basically my understanding. So,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, with that, we'll get out of here. Greg, you got anything? I know you just did 2 weeks ago that it came out? You did a tiny interview with a very small indie writer that's not really done anything.
Yeah, if you when we were promoting last time we were on, I was like, I have an interview. It isn't done yet, but it's probably one of my bigger creators. That was that. So I had Brian Michael Bendis on, and that was 2 weeks ago, or 2 Mondays ago. It just dropped, and then Aubrey Sitterson, who has Free Planet, which just came out today. You want to talk about a dense comic book that is huge world building, Free Planet. But we dig deep into that of what's going on, and I don't know. I've got a couple that I got to figure out which one's going this week, so I don't know. But this Monday, but just tune in on my channel every Monday. There's new interviews. So
nice,
yeah,
very cool, very cool,
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't checked out the interview with Bendis, it's really good. You did a good job. So
thank you.
So, and then you said, there's only been the what was her name again that you did this week?
Aubrey Sitterson. So it's
okay.
So we literally just he did stuff like Beef Bros and some other things like that, but he really has been all in on this Free Planet stuff. It's a really interesting stuff. So it's one of those, I would almost at this point read the comic and then watch the interview, because you're going to want to I don't this is one where you're going to might go, I'm a little confused what's going on here. And then you get the writer to here's where we're at. But it was a fun interview because he was super, his energy was very contagious of I'm man, I want you to talk about comics more with me.
Nice. Very cool. All right, before I get out of here and before I forget, I want to shout out my members real quick. So a quick thank you to all of those. A cheers from Old Wolf and a cheers from me to all of my members, including Unruly, who's on this panel, who is a member. I appreciate you all. Thank you for being that. And I didn't forget this time, so that's good. I have a tendency, if I don't watch myself, I forget to shout out the members. And with that, we are going to get out of here. I got coming up, I got a pre-recorded video dropping tomorrow, a little comic book history that comes out tomorrow. I got my regular Saturday video planned. I don't know if I'm going to get a whatever report this weekend. That may or may not happen. Depends on exactly what the family plans for Mother's Day weekend ends up turning into. And then maybe I'll just wait and do it Sunday night, because they'll be gone and we're not doing D&D because it's Mother's Day. So I may just wait and do whatever report on Sunday. That might be the way that happens this week. And then next week, I'll be reading 100 Bullets with John's Comics with Kids and Daymare. So we got a little 100 Bullets going on that we'll be discussing next week. So with that, we're going to get out of here. Thanks to Ken Byrne, Kenneth Bird, Dr. Hughes Show, Eric, all for hanging out with us and stopping by. GT Key, I appreciate it. And we will find my outro. Catch you next time.